The more knowledge that you attain on eating a whole food, plant-based diet, the more successful you will be. Definitely. So watch those videos. Now, without further ado, we have Susan who's going to introduce our speaker, Lee.
I don't always wear my potato costume, but this speaker deserved a potato welcome. I'm very nice to say. Wallace and I first met the speaker, Lee, 3 years ago when we took the McDougall program together. And he came up to visit us because we didn't live that far from him. So he came to the villages and we've developed a friendship. And since then, he has found love and a house in the villages. Yay! So I am so grateful that he's going to share his inspiring story so that you can all hear about how it's the food. And I just realized I should have had a bike lead to ride in here. He's a big bike fan. Bike advocate, I don't know. He's a biker. Anyway, so without further ado, Lee Radowski.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to say I'm not a professional speaker. I'm speaking from the heart. Good afternoon and welcome to the Whole Food Plant-Based Club meeting. I started coming here, as Susan said, after having attended the McDougall class and then coming over here for, who did we see? Dr. Campbell, I think, came. And that kind of sealed the deal for me. But anyway, I want to get started. Unknown to me, my journey to better health started in 1987. My dad died at 61 years of age after he had 3 open heart surgeries. They will tell you over and over again in these books that open heart surgery and stents and all of that don't really prolong your life. They may help you initially get through a hard spot, but longevity is not something that happens when you have those operations. Anyway, my entire family, and especially on my mom's side, has been, and even up to their death, through their death, morbidly obese or at least obese. So I've got a family history on one side of very, very heavy people. On my dad's side, not so much, but my grandparents on my father's side died really young. A grandmother of a heart attack and a grandfather from diabetes. So I spent my summers, my youth summers, on a farm in northern Wisconsin. I did that all summer long. I lived kind of with my grandmother in our cabin up there, and I did that to take care of my horses. I always loved horses. I always loved animals. I loved to hunt and stuff like that, and never realized until I went, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, I never realized until I went to the Veg Fest in Jonestown, Pennsylvania, how putting, when you sit down to look at pork chop on your plate, you don't realize the pain and suffering that animal was abused before that pork chop ended up on your plate. And that's part of what I never put together in this whole thing, even in my journey until I went to this. We had, I'll talk about it later, but we had over 40 speakers and things to keep us busy for that entire week. It was wonderful. So I ate lots of meat and milk right out of the cow. I mean, talking about drinking it right out of the udder, that was me, okay? But about 12 years old, I became dairy intolerant, and I couldn't quite figure that out. I had no idea what really was the cause of my dad's death. I had no idea what caused my dairy intolerance. And I discovered, I think I was about 8, and I'm not very good with dates, but I was about 8 when my dad came home with a fresh batch of rainbow trout he caught in one of the Wisconsin rivers. My mom cooked it, and that's when I found out I was deathly allergic to fish. I had a very bad anaphylactic response to that. They figured out, oh, this is what's doing it. So I didn't have really, as I started my journey in the vegan, I didn't have dairy and I didn't have fish to deal with. So it was easy to give those up. I hunted wild game frequently, I ate that. And what I have to attribute part of my health to is I've been riding a bicycle since I was very, very young. And after I've been riding about 3,000 to 5,000 miles a year now. And what happened was my friend and I decided we were going to take a 3-state bike tour to get ready for the biking season in Illinois, because obviously you don't bike much when it's cold and snowy. So we went to Louisiana and we were going to do an organized ride. He rode 3 days and he said, I don't know what's wrong with me, I just can't do it. So he quit. I rode the rest of the week with my friends. We went to Alabama. He rode about 10 miles, said, I can't do it. I don't know what's wrong. So I rode the rest. We went to Florida. We had another organized ride. I rode 3 days. He didn't ride any. And I felt bad about him sitting in the cabin all day, so I took him home. The next day, his surgeon put him in the hospital and put 2 stents in his heart. That was the issue. And I was scheduled to ride around the Teton Mountains in Wyoming on my bicycle with a group. And I thought, yeah, maybe I should make friends with this cardiologist guy and check myself out before I do this. It's 20,000 feet to climb, 370 miles. So I did. I went, had a stress test. He said, you're fine, go ahead and do it. I went and I did it. The only time I had any problem at all was when I was going over Teton Pass at 10,000 feet. I was a little bit short of breath, but other than that, it was fine. So after that, I came back home, and my wife had passed away in 2017, and my daughter had been going to school to try to get into med school, and she didn't make it into the one she wanted. So she decided that the compassionate care her mother got just before her death was enough of a calling that she wanted to be a nurse. And she went back to Michigan State and earned her advanced degree, her BSN in nursing, in an accelerated 1-year program. And what I did is I went over there, moved her out of her 3rd floor dorm room, which you can imagine after being in the same room for 3 years, she had an awful lot of crap. And, I carried it all down from 3 stories, put it in a U-Haul, went to graduation, and then the next day I moved her into her permanent 3rd floor apartment by myself. So all the crap that was in the trailer ended up in the apartment, we were fine. And the next day I went to Green Bay and went to a Packer game to celebrate my nephew's birthday. He was celebrating, and we went to a preseason game. And about 5 minutes left in the game, I got the chills so bad I could hardly walk. I had no idea what was going on. I was just literally shaking so bad I could hardly walk. My sister, who's her trained phlebotomist, said, I'm going to take you back. I'll put you at rest. So she took me back to the hotel and said to lay down for a few minutes. I did. And a few minutes later, I don't remember, she came in and she said, your color's not good, I'm taking you in. Oh, okay. So we went into the hospital, they did some blood work, and they thought I had gotten bit by a tick on my bicycle ride that I'd done before. And what they found was that I had the markers in my blood from having had a very, very mild, insignificant heart attack. So those markers were in my blood, and they started looking at that, and they said, we're gonna keep you overnight, and tomorrow we're gonna go in and look. So they did that, and I was lucky enough to have one of the best interventional cardiologists one could ever pray for. He went in and he came in, my kids were all in the waiting room, and he said, your dad's really sick. He said, I might have to do open heart surgery. I'm going to try to fix it with stents, but I might not be able to because it's pretty bad. But he was able to put 5 stents in before I became unstable on the table. So he said, fine. He sent me home. I went back to Naperville. They put in the additional 2 stents and never told me a thing about changing my diet or the cause of this. Let's see. So I got those 7 stents, didn't change, well, I changed my diet a little bit on my own. I started doing just the opposite of what we should be doing. I started eating a lot of meat and a lot of vegetables, and I was avoiding carbs altogether. I wasn't losing any weight. I was very, very large, and I'll show you. At my wife's funeral, this was the belt I wore in my pants. This is the belt I wore to my wife's funeral. Okay. So losing some weight, where I'm at now, I'm very, very happy. What came along with losing the weight, as Wallace and I were talking about a little bit sooner, was I also got rid of all the inflammation from my body. Remember, I'd had 2 hip replacements and a shoulder replacement. I was going in for another one. And when I came to Florida initially, the pain was so bad in my shoulder, I couldn't put my car keys in my pants pocket. I couldn't, when I did this with my arm, it hurt. I started the diet, the inflammation started going away. I started doing a little acupuncture and stuff to help me, and guess what? I have about 85% use of my arm without surgery, without having it replaced, and I'm able to function normally. So it does help. When I was in Florida and I went to investigate getting my shoulder done, the orthopedic surgeon said he couldn't do it until I got cardiac clearance. So he sent me to his fellow cardiologist in his practice. The guy looked at me and he said, you know, because you got the stents in, I can't really do anything. I'm going to have to do open heart surgery. Well, we sat back. I was dating someone at the time who was knowledgeable about plant-based eating, somewhat knowledgeable, and we said, well, let's think about it. So we went home, and she gave me this book, Dr. Esselstyn's book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. I read this book cover to cover, and we sat down and we talked about it, and we said, we can do this, we can do this. And we went back, we met with the surgeon, we said, we're gonna try this diet first. And he literally laughed at our faces, walked out, slammed the door behind us and said, good luck. That was it. There was no $100,000 reward for him for doing surgery, and he let us know that. So we started looking, and we found a cardiologist who was plant-based, whole food, and my partner here's got her shirt on. She is plant-based, and she actually did a little thing on that with her thing on, because she does kind of like a little podcast, and she's worth watching, kind of like Dr. Greger.
She's wonderful. I've met her. She's great. Agarwal. She's in, where is she, honey?
She's in Winter Park. Yeah, Winter Park. I studied that book and followed her advice. Dr. Esselstyn's book, I'd have to say, is the primary reason why I did that. Then she put me on some statin, but after my stints, I was taking like a half a Dixie cup full of medications, everything from blood thinners to things to manage my heartbeat, high blood pressure, whatever, and it was disturbing to have to take that much medicine. While working with Dr. Agarwal, we found after taking the class and working on it that I didn't need that medication. And so slowly she took me off everything. The only thing I take to this day, and it's only preventative, I don't really have to take it, is a rosuvastatin, like 5 milligrams once a week. And she says that that's just preventative. So I continued with my lifestyle change. I took the McDougall class with Wallace and Susan, and became very committed to this kind of lifestyle, and developed a friendship with them. And like they said, I eventually moved here. In July of 2024, I met Loie Burton over here, who also was very interested in my health. And together, we decided that she was going to take the class basically so we could cook together. She was already partially vegan, not completely, but on the road and wanted to do more. So we took the class together, and we're still cooking together, we're still doing things together, and she made that wonderful wild rice soup in the back. That's one of the things we brought. So I took that second McDougall class, and from the point of like before my wife's funeral until I've lost, like, as best I can tell, well over 90 pounds. And I haven't lost any functionality. I still ride my bike 3,000 to 5,000 miles a year. In fact, I just got done with 2 trips, one across New York, the Erie Canal from Buffalo to Schenectady, and then I did from Cincinnati to Cleveland. And riding for a week like that, 60, 70 miles a day, is a testament to one's fitness and longevity, So I did that. As I was losing the weight, I moved here and joined the Whole Food Plant-Based Club. Most of my family to this day is still obese. My kids, I have 2 children that have Crohn's disease, and they will not give up the meat. And they realize every single one of these books says Crohn's disease is one of the things that's cured with the inflammation. they will not change. I have a lot of family members, and it's very, very frustrating. And one of the things that I found at the Veg Fest in Johnstown was a woman who wrote this book. It's called The Vegan Transformation. It's really good. It talks about the cruelty that the animals go through before they end up on your plate. That's one thing. But it also talks about how we get isolated as vegans from friends, sometimes from family, and all that because we eat different. They're afraid to have us over because we eat different. We might not eat what they eat. And that's rather disturbing, but this is a good book. Another book that I would highly recommend is this one by
Yes, that's
Dr.
excellent.
Bernard, The
If
Cheese
you haven't
Trap.
read it, read it.
If you haven't read it, you won't look at cheese the same way again. Also, if you're not ready to go cold turkey, this book here, The Spectrum, by Dr. Ornish, talks about kind of moving into it gradually, but getting to the result. I said I'm off my meds except for that one. In July of 2025, we had the privilege of attending Veg Fest, and that was awesome. There was over 40 speakers. Dr. Greger was there, Dr. Bernard was there. A lot of them that we follow, a lot of their books that we read are there, and it was just an amazing experience. Are there any questions? Anything I forgot? Yeah?
How do you deal with the family members that you know that they're eating things that are hurting them, and yet they won't listen to your information? They choose to not change their diet. How do you deal with that?
You basically have to meet them on their level. You can't force them to change. They will not change until they're ready. And the thing that I found that readies most people, there was a post I put in the group just the other day that says, like, you have all this stuff, but you forget the most important resource you have is your health. Well, until they have some kind of health crisis, like mine, facing open heart surgery, or like Jim's, gets woken up in the middle of the night and he's in cardiac arrest, and you know, that happens. I moved to Florida because I had a cousin who had a stroke. I think his stroke is now 10 years ago, and I moved here to help his wife so he could have some more. So I've seen it in action. He was sitting in the waiting room of a hospital when he had his stroke. They could have easily given him that drug to minimize the effect, and they didn't. They were so busy, they left him sit there until he was completely paralyzed on his right side. He's lucky in as much as he's left-handed, so he's not lost full functionality, but it's difficult for him to walk, it's difficult for him to talk, and my dad died at 61. The evidence is here. You just have to avail yourself of it and start to believe it.
And to answer your question, you know, I have a very, very similar story. I just told my friends and family, what I eat will never be a topic of discussion again.
I don't think I can do that, though. I can't watch them eat things that I know that are hurting them and not say anything.
Yeah, but you
But I will tell you this because I've been doing this for 50 years.
wow.
You will turn your family against you if you keep doing that. You pray for them and hope that but if you want the relationship, even with your friends, when I go out if I get invited to a friend's home now, every friend knows. Don't worry about me. I'll bring my own food.
Or, so many of them now say to me, Debbie, you pick the restaurant. We don't care where we eat. But that's because I'm not at them. So they actually work with me most of the time.
I work in the medical field, and I love to help people. But along my way, I've learned a very important lesson. Until they want that help, they won't receive it. And the harder you try to help them, they'll see it as preaching. Most people don't like preaching.
And then
So-
they're turned against it.
Exactly, and then they fight you even more. So the best thing you can do is be there, answer the question, be a good example, and wait for them to ask you.
Right.
That's exactly right. My cousin, who I mentioned, had a stroke. You know, I've talked to him ad infinitum about the diet and what he's doing. And even though he's had a stroke, he doesn't, he gets mad. He says, don't ever talk to me about diet again. Leave it alone. I'm fine. I'm just gonna live the way I live, and that's how I'm gonna be. And I've got a lot of family members, Lois got a lot of family members that are the same way. They're like, I don't really care. I'm just gonna enjoy the food I'm eating. I'm gonna do what I do, and I don't care about my health. That's exactly what they're saying. You know, you can tell them. Go ahead.
There's a really popular book out, if you haven't read it, The Let Them Theory.
That's what I was going to
And
bring up. Mel Robbins.
it's so, Mel Robbins, it's
Yeah.
a fabulous book, and
Read the book, The Let Them Theory.
The Let Them Theory. And
Watch the book.
it really opens your eyes, and you realize that you can't change other people. So let them do whatever they want to do, but then you have to look at yourself. Let me. What am I going to do? I'm going to continue eating the way that I know is healthy for my body. I'm going to continue doing what I feel is benefiting me, and I will do public speaking to tell people, but I'm not going to force people to. People will do what they want to do. So let them, but then have to look at yourself. What am I going to do?
That's the best thing you can do is set an example. You know, I had the experience of just this past summer, Lori and I went on a long camping trip, and one of the stops we made was at my annual fraternity reunion from college. We've been doing it since I graduated from college, and all my fraternity brothers pretty much eat the standard American diet, and they realized that I didn't. And when we sat down to eat, I ate the things that I could, and I left the things that I couldn't. And when we left, and we're given all the goodbye hugs and everything, it's going to be hard for me. Almost all of them gave me a big hug and said that they appreciated my dedication, that I didn't waver on my commitment to my health. And that was few of them asked me for some tips. I have a lot of Dr. McDougall's stuff on the internet that's in PDF form. But one of the things that is worth reading is this is a book by the psychologist that works with the McDougall team. And it's about why we keep doing bad things to ourselves. Okay? This book called The Pleasure Trap is just that. It talks about why we feel good. And Lori and I have been looking at this. And when we're all done in the evening and we sit down and relax, we're finding, okay, we had a glass of wine and some crackers and some things. How can we stop doing that? And by stopping doing that, my weight stopped fluctuating. I'm staying between 150 and 155 pounds. She's losing weight. Her digestive issues are getting better. And it helps to examine what you're doing and staying in your own space to commit to it and keep going. Yeah?
If you want to be successful, you have to be an eagle. And if you know anything about birds, eagles soar by themselves. They don't fly with the flock. So you have to be an eagle. And then you will maybe get somebody that says, oh, you look good. Oh, what are you doing? Then you could let it out. But otherwise, it's like, excuse the expression, shit against the tide.
I went on vacation earlier this year with my siblings, who all think I don't have both oars in the water. Anyhow, my brother-in-law would always look for a restaurant. He'd preview the restaurant menu to make sure there was something I could eat. And he found, and we were in Cabo San Lucas, he found a vegan pizza parlor. And we went there kind of early, and the chef was there, and he was telling us how he made his crust. It's like a 4-day process, and he makes his own cheese and his own steak and chicken out of tofu. And one of my siblings asked, why did you choose to quit the regular restaurant business and do just this? And he says, well, 9 years ago I was diagnosed with lung tumors all over my lungs, and my doctor told me to get my affairs in order because I was going to check out. And he thought, well, I'm a chef, I should be able to do something, and he did some research and came up with Whole Foods. And he started eating that way, and he went back to the doctor. They got a scan, and everything was gone. And so he's very committed to it. And do you think it would have changed my sibling's mind? No. It didn't. And I can't talk about it, and I just let it go. And that's all you can do.
I wasn't there.
But it was interesting that they cared enough about me to find a restaurant that had food for me.
Actually, I have an interesting add-on to that. I told you that I bike a lot, and I've been doing rides with a bunch of friends, similar group. And last year we did the Cincinnati to Cleveland ride, and I struggled a bit in restaurants. And I have to admit, I've struggled several times on different bike trips. But this year, I went with basically the same group of friends on this Cincinnati Cleveland ride, and they actually picked out the vegan restaurants.
Yes.
The people I was with when we talked about eating out, they went online and found places where I could eat, and that's what happens. And several of them started asking me questions about the program and stuff.
And his
that's a start.
his final message to us was, he got a call back from his doctor, and his doctor had a patient that had the same thing he did, and would he counsel him? He said, we'll pay you to do that. And he says, oh no. He says, if I can save someone's life, I'm gonna do it for free. So he would take on a patient that had cancer and teach him how to eat. And I thought that was really amazing.
I mean, everybody has cancer genes in us, and what we have to realize is the food we eat is what turns them on and turns them off. And you can do a lot by controlling what you eat. And I have to say that many times I sit down and I look at nature and I think that my wife might still be alive if I knew about cancer. When I knew this stuff, and I didn't. And she died of cancer that could have been prevented. I think might have been prevented, maybe not, but with that, I'll let you guys go.